The unit we're now starting is going to be all about operations between polynomials. So before we dive into the operations, I want to talk about what a polynomial is. So I think the best way to work this video for you would be to pause it and go ahead and read through this vocabulary. Excuse me. Make sure you have it copied down. Make sure you have the tree diagram down, because I won't spend a lot of time on each of the pieces. Instead, I'll spend the majority of the time of this video going through the next page, which is my examples. But basically what we want to look at is a polynomial is going to be one or more terms connected through addition or subtraction. We could have monomials with one term, binomials with two, trinomials with three, and then if we have more than three, we don't have a special name, so we just lump them all together and refer to them as a polynomial, kind of going back to that original vocabulary word. We're always going to want to write our polynomials in standard form, so that means our terms, the exponents, will be in descending order, so going down. And one last thing is always remember to first perform any operations or combine like terms before you determine which of the following types of polynomials you have. So once again, if you don't have all this down before I change the page, please do make sure that you pause the video to copy it down, or take a minute if you have that template to read through each piece more more thoroughly. All right, so we're going to look at 3 examples. On each of them, we're going to change to standard form and then classify the polynomial by its number of terms. Well, as I just mentioned, we always need to make sure we do any operations first. So I see I have a 2 here I can distribute, as well as a 4 here I can distribute. So I'm going to go ahead and distribute my front terms. Doing so is going to give me 8x squared minus 12x plus 12x squared minus 8x plus 4x squared. So notice this is nothing new. We've distributed before. We've also combined like terms before. So I'm going to go ahead and combine all my squared terms. So let's see, 8 and 12 is going to give me 20x squared, plus 4 more is going to give me 24x squared. And then I can go ahead and say I have a minus 12x and a minus 8x, which are going to combine to be a minus 20x. And then I look like I've combined everything and used up all my terms. I like to highlight mine in some way, either through underlining, through subtracting. Sometimes I'll box them up, but just to make sure that when I look up here, I see, yep, I have interacted with every single term, so I'm not missing anything. Well, now that I've combined like terms, I can go ahead and count 1, 2 terms, because again, terms are separated by a plus or minus sign. So there's my first, there's my second. Since there's 2 terms, I can go ahead and say that this is a binomial. And again, I know it's in standard form because I have an exponent of 2 and 1, so it is descending. Moving on to example 2. Once again, I'm going to distribute if possible. Well, I look at my first set of parentheses. I can't combine anything inside of them, and I don't have anything to distribute, which tells me these parentheses are essentially meaningless. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of them. And while doing that, I'm also going to distribute the minus into my second set. And then I know that distributing a plus 1 really isn't going to change anything, but I can go through that motion back there, giving me 5x squared minus 4x plus 3. Again, distributing that minus all the way through, so minus 7x squared minus 3x, that minus 12 becomes plus 12. Distributing the positive, a positive times a positive 5 is still a positive 5. A positive times a negative 2 is still a negative 2. Now that I've combined, now that I've went ahead and got rid of my parentheses, now I can start combining like terms. So let's see, I'm going to go ahead and say I have a 5x squared here and a minus 7x squared. So putting those together, I get minus 2x squared. And I have a minus 4x and a minus 3x and a plus 5x. Now, depending on how good you are with positives and negatives, you may want to do this in 2 steps. I'm fairly comfortable with adding and subtracting and combining positives and negatives, so I can go ahead in one step and say negative 4 and negative 3 is negative 7, and a positive 5 gives me a negative 2. Like I said, if you're uncomfortable with that, please do a little scratch work up in some space off to the side. Negative 4 and negative 3 is negative 7. Negative 7 and 5 is negative 2. So you do not have to be able to do it all at once like I can. And then finally combining what I call my constants. 3 and 12 is 15. Minus 2 is 13, a positive 13. Again, use your scratch area if you need to put those together. I check to make sure I'm in standard form, and I see that my exponents are 2, 1, and then no variables, so I am in standard form, so I'm ready to classify because I can no longer combine anything. I have 1, 2, 3 terms, so I'm going to go ahead and call this a trinomial. And we're going to look at one more example. This would be a great one if you want to try one on your own. So go ahead and pause the video and give it a shot. All right, let's see how you did if you chose to try this one. Again, I start with my distributing, and it looks like I can distribute a 4 into the front terms, or the front set of parentheses, a negative 3 into the next, and a negative 2 into the next. Remembering sign belongs to the number. 4x cubed minus 12x squared plus 8 minus 3x cubed plus 6x to the 5th minus 15x minus 8x plus 6x cubed. Once I've distributed everything, again paying attention to those signs, I'm going to go ahead and say I have an x cubed, a negative 3x cubed, and a positive 6. So again, use your scratch work if you want to. Otherwise, 4 subtract 3 is 1, plus 6 is 7x cubed. And then I'm going to go ahead and say I have a negative 12x squared. And it looks like that's my only x squared term, so it's going to go ahead and drop down. I don't have anything to combine it with. And then I have a positive 8, and again, it looks like the only term I have that doesn't have a non-variable, so I'll go ahead and drop it down. And then I have a 6x to the 5th without any other x to the 5ths. And then finally, it looks like these are both going to be like terms here. They both have just an x involved, so negative 15 and negative 8. That's going to give me a negative 23x. I check this time I am not in standard form. My exponents are going 3, 2, none, 5, 1. So I'm going to rearrange, and the sign's going to belong to the number it's in front of. So this is going to remain a positive 6x to the 5th when it comes to the front. Then I'm going to keep that a positive, and I'm going to show it's positive by putting a plus 7x cubed, because again my terms need to be separated by positives or negatives or add or subtract signs. I'll drop down my negative 12x squared. I've already taken care of that one, so I'll underline that too. Then I'll take my variable with an exponent of 1. And finally, that constant term that doesn't have a variable will stick on the end. I count my number of terms, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I do not have a special name for anything over 3, so I'm just going to go ahead and say this is a polynomial. And if I wanted to, I could say with 5 terms, but again, there's no special name for it. So just a quick recap, review that vocabulary so you know the difference between how to name them. Make sure you're distributing and combining like terms, and then go ahead and make sure you're in standard form and count your terms. Hopefully this makes sense. If not, please make sure you are bringing in your questions with you to class so we can go over those together.